All right, we are live. What is up, everyone? My name is Ryan from the Indie Music Academy, the channel where we uncover the mysteries of the music industry, learn how to grow a larger fan base, and earn an income from our music. And today I have with me Tommy Z. He is a professional musician. He specializes in making music for brands, and we're going to discuss everything about that today. We're going to discuss how you can get started. This solidly sits in the category of making an income from your creativity, from your music. And so thank you, Tommy, for being with me this morning. Not morning for you, but definitely morning
No,
for people over here in the US. So thank you for being here. I just want to invite everyone watching to just say hi in the chat really quick. We love seeing your names pop up. This is meant to be just an interactive time for you guys to learn. We will take questions. So drop your questions in any time. And so if you're here with us watching live, take advantage of that. Please do. And then for people who are watching the recording, hope you enjoy. We already have a couple people saying hi, rolling in. So I just want to get started right away. The first thing I want to ask you is, what is making music for brands? Tell me a little bit about your life. For someone who has never met you before, doesn't know how the whole brand world works, just give us a quick overview of just your world so we can have a nice kind of like introduction to the rest of the topics we'll cover
I
today.
think this is a good starting question because a lot of musicians are probably familiar with commercials and brand content, whether it's on TV, radio, cinema, or online. But it's amazing to me how few musicians understand that it's actually an outlet that's a
Mhm.
viable outlet for their craft as musicians. I think most musicians just basically think that brands buy their music from famous artists or
Mhm.
stock libraries or music libraries, but the reality is that there's a whole world that exists which most musicians don't know about. And I'm saying this as a musician who at one point had no idea that this world even existed. But there's a world that you don't know about where there is like various musicians, countless musicians around the world sitting in their home studio crafting original music. I
Mhm.
mean, like, not, uh, this is not sync. This is not like um, existing music. This is music that hasn't existed before. They basically receive campaign content in its early form, so like an early edit of, let's say, a Super Bowl commercial, and a bunch of composers start to work on this in their home studio, and they're commissioned to work on this original music. And this original music essentially has to fit the narrative, the story, the setting of
Mhm.
this campaign, of the picture. So this is the art and craft of actually, it's like film scoring, except we're scoring mini films
Yeah.
called brand commercials or campaign or content. And it's a quite a hidden world, to be honest. Like, everybody knows about film scoring. A lot of people know about video game scoring. Everyone's talking about sync, where you're pitching a bunch of music to music supervisors. But this is entirely different. This is an industry based on relationships between the brand, the ad agency, the music production company that the ad agency hires to execute original music for commercials, and the freelance composers, which are responsible, I would say, for like 90% of the music that you see in a commercial. Um,
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever come across like an ad or whatever, like watching some kind of a brand campaign, and you go, that's an amazing track. I have no idea who that is. There's a good chance that that track didn't exist before the commercial. Of course, there's music that is licensed to commercials very often, but
Mhm.
I know at least of a few musicians that I've worked with personally whose music career actually got momentum because their music that they wrote, especially for a commercial, got a lot of buzz. Like, a lot of people on their YouTube comments were going, "Who did this song?" Let's say on an Audi commercial.
Mhm.
Then, one brand campaign, another brand campaign, and then the artist is like, "Hey, man, I should do something with these songs. Like, I should extend them. I should turn this momentum into an EP or something, since people are really resonating with the music. So this is a long way to answer your short question.
That's fantastic.
And I'm happy to tell you about, how the business works, the details, the ins and outs. And to anybody watching right now, if you have questions, here's your chance to ask. I'm happy to tell you how things work, because this is not information that you're going to find readily available. Like, I know, because we teach people how to do this, and as we look around to see if anybody else is doing it, we still haven't found like any comprehensive resource for this. So I'm really happy to provide you guys with whatever answers to whatever questions you might have.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so lucky to have you on today. Actually, you spoke to something that I was in that situation as well, where I thought that making music for brands fell in the category of sync licensing. And until I met you, I realized that they're completely different things. And so for anyone who is listening, who maybe came onto the stream with that presumption as well, what is the difference between sync licensing, which is talked a lot everywhere, right? That's kind of a buzzword, right? I want to get my music synced, right? It's a big payday, right? Buzzword sync licensing. What's the difference between that and making music for brands? And I think I understand the difference, but I just want to make sure that everyone watching knows what what the difference is, so that they can understand the future questions and ask the right questions moving forward. So
the basic difference is that sync is about taking an existing track you have and having it placed to some kind of an audio visual transmission. Whereas what we're talking about specifically is not having anything, receiving in your email inbox a brief, whoever, most likely a music production company that specializes in making music for commercials. And a lot of them exist. You think this is niche, but there's we have a running directory. There's over 400 of these around the world. So, so you receive in your email inbox a brief, and there it is. Hey, we're working on an Audi commercial. It's going to be 60 seconds. And here's what we need to do. We need a custom tailor suit. It's like going to a tailor. You take measurements, and you can buy it. Like sync is like you go in and you buy a Hugo Boss suit. That's sync. Might be a Hugo Boss, or it might be like, no name suit for less money. That's what sync. But what I'm talking about is making music from scratch. So that's custom tailor suit. So that means you take the measurements, you pick the texture, you pick the materials, and then you start crafting it. So in the brief, it will say, look, we want a song, something that sounds like it's coming from an artist. But this film is a very twisting and turning story. And so we've had a lot of trouble trying to find a track to license. So what we want to do is actually create a track from scratch that's going to twist and turn through the narrative of the story, and at the same time not sound like it's some lame commercial track, like some jingle or something like that. We want it really credible. And so then you go to work. You're like, okay, so I have to write this ballad in the style of, let's say, Jose Gonzalez, heartfelt, minimal, kind of like with some depth, like some emotion, some introspection, let's say. Every brief is going to be different, by the way. When you get a toilet brief commercial, it's probably not going to be introspective.
That's right.
But if you're working on some kind of an upscale brand that has a good musical taste, and we know a lot about those. I mean, fashion brands, perfume brands, like luxury car brands, even not luxury car brands, but, lifestyle brands, Adidas, Nike, all of these brands, they cannot afford to go out with a lame transmission. I mean, they literally have to appeal to the kids in the street or whatever you have as a demographic. They got to be real. They got to be the purveyors of what's cool and fresh. They have to be the curators or creators even. And so the people that work on these commercials, like, because it's funny, I hear from musicians sometimes, oh, commercials, they're lame, whatever. Like, but have you ever seen like Super Bowl campaigns it is the pinnacle
Seriously.
of craft. You have famous film directors working on these things. You have famous editors working on these things, and you have cream of the crop working all along, from the film director to the editor to the colorist to the special effects person to the music production company that's supplying original music. But that's essentially the difference. You wake up in the morning, you open your email, and if you have a lot of relationships developed, and I'll use one of the people that we have in our academy as an example, and I use him because he's like a model of what I'm talking about. Like he's who you want to be. He has relationships with 30 different music production companies. And so essentially every day he wakes up, there's a brief waiting for him in the email inbox in the morning. And on a busy day, he will sketch demos for like 3 different campaigns, and 1 out of 3 will probably land. So he will not only get paid to sketch a demo, which is quite a lower fee, because the music production company will commission a bunch of demos from a few different people, so they have options. But whoever lands it gets the major payday, anywhere from like 3 to like 15 to 20 grand. I mean, it really depends on what the campaign is. And I can also talk about what kind of money you can expect based on the parameters of the campaign, like, but that's essentially the difference, is you're making stuff from scratch instead of looking for an existing track, although that also exists. So there's a chance that my friend who I'm talking about might open his email and there might be an email like, hey, we're working on an Audi commercial, but we really don't have time or budget to create something from scratch. Do you have anything in this vein? And then a lot of composers will actually have developed like thousands of tracks over the years of composing for commercials, many of them which didn't make the campaign, but are nevertheless very, very good. And so a lot of times they will be able to like mine their archives and possibly sell a track, maybe do some revisions to it so that it fits this particular campaign, and make some money also without having to make music from scratch. But still, what we're talking about specifically is like the ability, the art and craft of writing a song, score, or putting together a bunch of sounds from scratch for a specific campaign.
Yeah, so it seems like it's just way more hands-on. The clientele is upper tier. This isn't micro syncs. This isn't, getting your track used in, a wedding film or anything like that. This is top tier stuff. And
yeah,
it so seems like, to me too.
Musicians ask me, for instance, sorry, Ryan, but like musicians always ask me like, how, like, what about library music? Like, is putting my music libraries a good idea? And that's a misconception that big brands actually use music libraries. They don't. If you're talking about a small campaign, like social media campaign, maybe they will pull from a library. But when you're talking about a major campaign that you see on TV, cinema, radio, internet, for a major car brand or whatever, they're not looking in music libraries for this music. What they're doing is following a protocol which has pretty much existed for the last, I don't know how many decades. But it's that they reach out to a ad agency to come up with an idea for the spot. The brand does. So Adidas reaches out to their ad agency. The ad agency creates the idea, or conceives of the idea, and then they reach out to respective production partners to shoot this idea. So film production company, editing company, music production company. And these companies literally specialize in doing content for brands, like making commercials, campaigns, right? So this is why I'm saying it's a very specific world with a very specific workflow with very specific people who are doing this full time. And this is not like ad hoc, like every time there's a wild search for some composer to create a campaign. No, it's like people have established relationships with their music production company. The music production company has established relationships with their freelance composers. And so your mission, if you want to entertain this field of work, is essentially to develop relationships and befriend music producers. So people like me at music production companies, and be able to, show your superpowers. Go, you know what? Maybe I haven't done a commercial before, but I think my kind of music or my songwriting style or whatever might lend itself quite nicely to something like this. And here's
Yeah.
my best work in 2 minutes, and boom, either your work resonates and people go, oh yeah, wow, this is really good stuff, I'm going to keep you in mind,
Hmm.
um, or not, and you got to keep working on fashioning the kind of reel that is actually going to be relevant and resonate with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I see a ton of good questions coming in. I want to get to those. We will do some Q&A with Tommy, so drop your questions in. We're not ignoring them. We're just letting them stack up. And I want to talk about a few things. I want to talk about the gear that you need to have, what kind of gear is required. I want to talk about something called sound branding,
Yeah.
right, which is hugely important in this field. And I also want to talk about the big mistake that you made when you first started or when you first entered this world, that big mistake that you mentioned to me
Yeah.
about approaching this kind of the wrong way, because we have a couple of questions that are speaking to this specifically. For example, hello, Tommy, what's the best way to approach this world, right? And I know you have the perfect story to answer this. So thank you guys for your questions and comments. Keep them coming. We're going to definitely get to them. But first, I think actually let's dive right into that one. It's a great story.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the question that is like the question you'd expect. Okay, how do we get in?
Yeah.
So how I found out about this world in the first place was that I was a DJ, and I was getting into music production. I started doing remixes and licensing my music to various compilations back then. This is like 2005. And I had a friend who worked at an ad agency who was also a DJ, so we knew each other from the DJ circuit. And he was working on a campaign for Pontiac Aztec. I don't know if you guys know this car. Probably one of the ugliest cars in the world. It had a tent in the back. It was terrible. But my friend said to me, "Hey, you have a studio. You're making music. Are you interested in maybe writing some music for a Pontiac Aztec campaign?" And I said, yeah, that sounds very intriguing. And at the time I had a full-time job. So I was literally like working a corporate career by day, and I was DJing at night. And I just didn't see myself like being a DJ for the rest of my life. So I was kind of like hesitant to commit to that as a career. At the same time, I was like, well, I don't see myself as a star on stage either. Like these remix fees, these licensing fees, they're so sporadic, man. It's like, and I was a bit like afraid to commit to that kind of life where like nothing is for sure. And so I'm saying this because like the world that I am in now, I've been in for 15 years since I left my corporate career. And so it was the only time when I felt like, hey, this is like reliable in a sense. Like there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of projects, and it's like, I just need to basically get myself into that world. So that's the question. How did I get in the world? So what happened is my friend gave me that first campaign. I did it. And then like I got paid, and I was like, damn, really? Like that's how much, because it took me like 2 nights in the studio to come up with a few tracks. There was some revisions, but essentially I was in the studio anyway at night. So it's like, when I got paid, I was like, holy crap, this is like, it was like 3 times what I would get paid for like a remix or, whatever. It was like worth, I don't remember now exact figures, but it was significant. It was like 3 months of my full-time career salary. And I didn't have some kind of a shitty career. Like I was working at a TD Dominion, like Toronto Dominion Bank head office in Toronto, Bay Street. It was a real job for a major salary. And I was like, holy crap, this is incredible. Is that how much like you guys pay for this sort of stuff? And he was like, well, the budgets are various, like it's never the same, but yeah, like this is pretty much average. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So then I literally was like, okay, I can quit my job for this, because this is like a very definite, concrete path. Like I get it. You're making music for commercials, and there's a lot of commercials. Like, okay, so let's do it. The problem was I was a little bit too enthusiastic and naive about it. And so after I quit my corporate career, I spent all this money to like build a studio with my partner at the time. and
Mhm.
build. I spent I don't remember how much, but it was very expensive actually to have a website in 2005. We didn't
Mhm.
have Squarespace. We didn't have all these like WordPresses. So I spent all this money on a website, these fancy business cards, and I started emailing ad agencies and calling them also, and crickets. And I was like, hey, I'm Tommy Z, and I'm a music producer, composer. I make cool electronic music. And here's a commercial I did for Pontiac Aztec. And like nobody was getting back to me. And I was like,
Mhm.
what's going on? Like, I mean, nobody. And I had a friend of a friend who basically sat me down and said, you know what, let me introduce you to someone in the ad industry. Like they work at an ad agency. They're cool. They're working on all the big brands like Mini. And so I
Mhm.
sat down with this guy named Johnny, and Johnny said to me, dude, like, why are you emailing ad agencies? Ad agencies don't deal with individual musicians. And I'm like, no, I thought they did because my friend gave me a job directly, but I learned later that this is not the way it happens at all. Like,
Mhm.
ad agencies do not reach out to individual freelance musicians. What they do is reach out to music production companies that specialize in making music for brands. And so Johnny basically said, hey, in Toronto, you have a number of different music production companies that specialize in making music for ads. And I was like, really? Yeah. And now I know there's like 15 of them, and I ended up actually shortly thereafter. So I started emailing the music production companies with my reel, with my electronic, like 90-second reel, really impactful, really well blended. Like I knew this was music that could belong in a commercial. And at that time, it was still hard to make that kind of music. Like today, we have the splices and all the native instruments complete, and all the presets already sound good. But back then, it was still kind of rare for you to create an electronic track, because it was like a very impactful electronic track. You were like, how did you make that sound? Like how, because we didn't have like sample libraries were on CDs, and if you had a CD that was a really good sample library, then you were like the king or the queen. But anyway, so now I started getting answers. Music production companies or music producers from these music production companies were like, hey, who are you? I've never heard of you. Come in for a coffee. So I was getting some traction. So I would go in and go, and I would enter these studios, and I was like, holy crap, man. Like, because you don't know they exist. They're
Yeah.
among us, but you don't know they exist. They're like on the fourth floor of some downtown office building. And you
Mhm.
walk in, and suddenly wooden floors, synthesizers from floor to ceiling, leather couches, sushi, catering. You're like, what is going on? But that's the world, man. That's the world that I'm talking about, that you have no idea that exists, because these are big budgets, guys. Like, you don't
Mhm.
understand. Music production companies make millions of dollars, some of them, a year from creating original compositions. So that's why they're renting a $50,000 studio space, because all they're doing is working on these brand campaigns. And a lot of these production companies are actually like, and I was a part of one in Toronto called Tattoo, by the way. That was my first one. That was a big studio that recorded like 2 Alanis Morissette albums, a bunch of other albums, beautiful studio, SSL console, the full works. And, at some point it's like, well, we're not really able to meet payroll with these album recordings. So a lot of these studios basically shapeshifted into music production companies that started
Mhm.
doing music for ads. And so
Mhm.
so yeah, after a few of these meetings, I developed some relationships, and at one point, one of the studio owners said to me, "Hey, you seem like a cool guy. You talk a good game. I think the advertising guys would like you. And so why don't you come under our roof and try to bring us some campaigns, befriend some of these creative directors at agencies?" And so now it was a different story. Now I took a huge pay cut um, from my corporate job, but I didn't mind, because I was like, for the first time in my life, I can call myself a music producer. So it was a
Mhm.
bit of like a status thing, it felt really good. Um, and so now it was different. Now I could reach out to ad agencies because I was reaching out as a music producer from a music production company that was
Mhm.
already in the space.
Mhm.
So essentially, again, I'm answering your short question in a long way. The way to get into this business is to, first of all, familiarize yourself with the music production companies that exist in this space. Okay. I'll give you a few examples. Mine is one of them, TommyZ.co. You go to TommyZ.co, you'll see we have a portfolio, we have a reel, bunch of work that we've done for various brands. Massive Music is another company that's pretty big in our space. I used to work there. They started in Amsterdam, and they're very reputable in this business. You go to massivemusic.com. You'll also see a reel, a lot of work being done for brands. Yesian Music, YESSIAN.com, I think. You have Butter, Sound of Music in Los Angeles. You have Hum. You have Amp. You have Human. You have Eggplant. You have Grayson. Guys, you don't understand. Once you go down this rabbit hole, like tons of them. There's like 400 of them around the world. So that's your first task, is to familiarize yourself with the way the websites look, and most importantly, what kind of portfolio they have. Meaning, what kind of like ads do they have? What kind of music is on there? And then your next move is to find an intersection between what it is that you're doing musically and like what it is that the marketplace is doing musically, so that you can actually start building a reel of things that would strike any music producer like me as something that could be in a commercial. And the more rare and remarkable it is, and by that I mean, like, let's say you're a vocalist and you have a certain vocal styling, it could be like, I don't know, Feist, it could be like Billie Eilish, something unique, like something that gives me the idea that, hey, if I wanted that, I would have to call that person, and not like dance, 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 clap, clap, tambourine, whistle. I'm sorry, guys, but that worked 20 years ago. It's going to be very hard for someone to notice you just off of that.
Yeah.
So remarkable songwriting, unique quality of the voice, but not like, I'm not talking about like Tom Waits kind of unique. We have to kind of like adjust ourselves to the marketplace, and this is what I always say, like, this is not about compromise, by the way. This is about realizing that there's a difference between being an artist and being an artisan. An artisan is somebody who takes a commission and then solves a creative problem for it. So if it's toilet paper, fine. Today I write music for toilet paper. It's not something I would put on my EP. It's not something I'll even put my name on. But as an artisan, I have zero problems with sitting in a studio, strumming my guitar, and doing something for toilet paper when I'm getting paid for it. That's my attitude, by the way. Like, when I'm an artisan, I'm here to get paid. I don't care if it's toilet paper or... By the way, if you have something against oil companies or cigarette companies or beer companies, my friends in the business who are very busy, they have certain rules of engagement. So for instance, I know one guy who will not do any political stuff. I know another person will not do any oil companies. So there's also like, even as a craftsperson, there are rules that you have to basically, that you can write for yourself. You don't have to. Maybe you say, I don't have a problem with anything. Just pay me and I'll make a song for anybody, which is fine. But that's different. That's a craftsperson mindset. As an artist, that's a different thing. So you got to realize, it's like you got to separate those two things. There's a way to be an artist and be non-compromising when it comes to your art. That doesn't mean anyone's going to pay you for it, and that's fine. But this is your art. You get to decide. But when you decide to be a craftsperson also, maybe in addition to being an artist, and we have people like that in our business, I can show you examples actually, then it's a different mind frame. It's basically like, hey, I'm here to solve a problem. It's not about being my music being precious or like, what I think necessarily. I basically have to deliver what the client wants. And hopefully it's something that still allows me to feel good about myself at the end of the day. Which, it's not always the case. It's not, but the good news is, at least you're getting paid for it. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that's basically uh, the answer is do some research. Music production companies, find
Mm.
people within these music production companies. They're often on their website. They're called music producers or creative directors. And make sure that when you send them an email, please, please, please do not write about yourself, in like an autobiography in one email. I know it's tempting. Like, musicians are like this. We want to tell the whole story. We don't want to leave anything out. We're very close to our art and all of that.
Mhm.
But when you start thinking like a craftsperson, you realize that it's like you're a hired gun. Nobody cares about your life story or how many bands you've been a part of. And in fact, the more you share and the more links you share, the less likely that we're gonna process this information and listen to these links.
Yeah,
For the
everyone's
simple
busy.
reason that when I get 15 links, like, I don't know which one to click. And I'm like, I don't want to spend my life in my email inbox. Therefore,
Yeah.
I want to clear out my email inbox and go on to actually working, because like sitting in my email is not working. So when I see 15 links, I basically go, you know what, maybe later. And you know what happens nowadays with maybe later? Probably never.
Archive.
Whereas if I open an email and I see 3 lines of text, it's almost like I'm automatically reading it. I
Mhm.
don't have a choice because my eyes are just scanning, and it's like, hey, I'm Billy and I love your work. And look, man, I think I'm serving up some magic here. What do you think? Link, boom, one link. And when I'm in my email inbox, like most people, I'm just like a robot. I'm just like, oh yeah, hey, Billy, yeah, and I'm just clicking, right? It's a completely different reaction. It's like that results in me clicking that link, and then hopefully you take me to a website that's clean, simple, and like right away I hear your superpower and it's relevant to me.
Mhm,
And that's
mhm,
the difference between an email that's like long with 15 links and you think you've succeeded because you've basically given me the entire picture of all your different shades and colors, but actually you
mhm.
failed in a major way because people are not very likely to check out anything when they're overwhelmed. And yeah, so that's the short answer. Like, how do you get in this business? It's all relationships with music producers. If
Mhm,
music
mhm,
producers are impressed with your site and with your reel, even if you've never written a commercial, it might be harder for you to break in, sure, because you have nothing to show yet. But I guarantee you that if you have a remarkable talent and your songwriting is amazing and there's a certain magic about your music and a music producer can picture it in a commercial, you're gonna get a reply sooner or later. Because selfishly, me as a music producer, you guys are my toolbox. I know this sounds kind of weird, but essentially my success is about giving an edge to my clients, so like
mhm,
surprising them with something special. And in order for me to do that, I have to have special people around me. So I'm
mhm,
always on the lookout for people who might be offering something new and interesting. And so so there's room. There's always room. There's always room. It's not going to be easy because you're going to compete with people who are world class,
mhm,
literally world class, who are able to turn around magical pieces of music in like 24 hours. But hey, you might be the kind of musician that goes, hey, I kind of get off on that. Like, wow, 24 hours to write a track with someone actually on the other end listening to it and potentially being able to put it in front of people on a big campaign.
mhm,
I'm one of those people. Like, without this pressure, I'm unable to make great music.
mhm.
And I've tried. I've tried and I failed miserably. It took me like a year to record an EP when I took a year off of advertising, and I still wasn't happy with it. But there's something magical about like having 2 days and someone waiting to hear it, and like the possibility that it might go somewhere. And I thrive on that. And I'm sure some of you listening might too.
Absolutely. Dude, we all know how deadlines affect and bring out something in us that we could never have had when there's all the time in the world. Same thing with songwriting. I totally relate to that. Guys, I hope you are enjoying this. So many great nuggets are being dropped. Continue to ask your questions. I hope you're taking notes too, especially when Tommy was talking about all his production companies. I was just like, dude, this is gold right here. So hope you're taking notes. Keep asking your questions. I want to ask you, what is required as far as gear, as far as just like investment? I know a lot of us are in different places regarding our home studios, and maybe some of the viewers are thinking, I can do this and I have the passion to do this, but maybe my small interface is not enough, or maybe my virtual synthesizer is not enough. I see you have a hardware synthesizer flashing behind you, which is awesome. But is all that necessary? What exactly is needed, and what does the average composer actually use?
So let me start by saying that in our business, the workflow is that you have to develop a fully polished demo. That's what you deliver on any given job to a music producer like me. You basically deliver a fully polished demo, which means it sounds crisp, it's jumping out of the speaker, and you're probably sending it under the movie file or with the movie file, and then as a separate audio track on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation is that it sounds fully polished. Some young musicians who are very talented, and not necessarily young, but people who don't know about this business, that I've tried, for instance, because I needed something different. So I had to reach out outside of our business to someone who was a virtuoso, but not necessarily, well-versed in our workflow. They would send me these like half-finished sketches and go, well, if the client likes it, or if you like it, then we'll develop it. That's not the way it works. Like, it can't work that way. The reason why is because we have now achieved such access to music making and everything, really, filmmaking and editing, and like it's at our fingertips, like we can do it on our phone almost, and some campaigns are actually shot on the phone. And so like basically there's no excuse to deliver something half polished sonically, and the timelines are so short that we can't afford to like muck around. Basically, when I pass stuff forward to my client, which is the agency, they will pass it on to their client, which is the brand. And the brand, like, you can't expect someone sitting in a boardroom and to watch, a proposal, let's say, like, okay, here is what we're going to do for this campaign, with half finished stuff. They just don't have the imagination. You know what I mean? They like, you literally have to show them, like, what is this going to be? And, unless it gives them goosebumps as a fully finished product, pretty much, we can't do it any other way. So having said this, there's absolutely zero prerequisite other than what I just said. And what I just said, a fully polished demo is achievable on a laptop, even without a sound card. And I've done campaigns on my laptop while I'm on the road without a sound card even. Mind you, I'm an inside the box musician. Most of my stuff is sample based or electronic. I don't sing, So we have people in our business who are legit. They've done many campaigns. They live off of this, who are literally, their studio is their laptop, and they know their plugins so well, and they're so fast, and they just know how to work their own setup, and they're able to accomplish what they need to accomplish. Then there are other people who have fully fledged studios, who have, $5,000 sound cards, or even outboard gear or whatever. But everything depends on what your superpower is, what your sound is, and what the tools are that you need in order to bring this forth. So basically the answer depends on you. Like, if you're just a beat maker, well, I'm guessing not much more than a laptop you will need. If you are a musician that relies on acoustic instruments and recording, well, obviously you're going to need some kind of a decent microphone, some kind of a decent preamp, some kind of a decent, I mean, I don't even care. Maybe you know how to record your guitar without a preamp, but like, you're such a wizard because of your limitations. You've been able to figure out how to get good sound with whatever you have. You see, I always say it's not about the gear, it's about the goosebumps.
Love that. Yeah.
It's not so about the gear, guys. It's literally what happens when your music is being played. It comes out of the speaker, and what does it do to another human? How you got there, nobody's gonna ask. Nobody is ever gonna ask, "Hey, man, so I got your demo. So what sound card are you using?" Like, you're never gonna get that. Never, ever, ever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Essentially, if it sounds good, they don't care how you made it. Nobody knows. So that's the basic answer. So if you are recording live instruments, yeah, you better be good at that. If
Yeah.
you are making electronic music, maybe you don't even need a sound card, so there's no prerequisites. In fact, a lot of the outboard gear that you see here, I only bought for my own pleasure, because I enjoy making music that way, and turning knobs and being surrounded by boxes, and it kind of gives me a cool feeling. And but the reality is, guys, and this is not just me, but also other people who are doing this full time for a living, we will not use our hardware gear. I shouldn't say it's a rule, but like, if it's too complex, if I have to deal with MIDI, if I have to deal with recall, if blah blah blah, all these things, usually, like, we're not going to do it. We're just going to work the most efficient workflow that allows us to get great sound, keeping in mind that there's probably going to be 10, 11 revisions, that I will have to have multiple versions, that I will have to have multiple versions of my session. And so, with like some kind of hardware gear, that might be difficult for recall, like so just keep that in mind, a lot of the folks that I know that have incredible studios, they limit themselves to, like, a few plugins. Omnisphere, there's a big joke in our business, like, how many instances of Omnisphere can you open, at one time?
All of them.
Yeah. But that's kind of like, Omnisphere is a big one. Obviously, a lot of orchestral stuff like Spitfire is huge in our business. Project Sam orchestral library is huge in our business. The suite, what are they called? Output Suite, Arcade, all that stuff, like, huge in our business, because it allows you to work very quickly, and it gives you a lot of really cool sounds immediately. And because our work is like delivering music that's pretty fresh, I don't want to say it's always modern. Like, we have briefs where I have to create a 50s vintage track, like Frank Sinatra or something, because they can't buy it. They can't find the right track. So they ask us, okay, can you create something that has a Frank Sinatra vibe? Sometimes we do that, we're literally trying to figure out how to use our tools to make everything sound like it was done like 70 years ago. But yeah, there's no, like, the one common denominator that I will say is a necessity is that you have to have a DAW that is able to import picture. Because you're very likely going to be writing to picture. So Cubase, a lot of people in our business use Cubase. My favorite composers that I work with often are on Cubase. Logic, very big in our business. Logic, Cubase, Ableton are the three major ones. Then some people do Pro Tools, but usually it's like one of those three DAWs: Cubase, Ableton, Logic. FL Studio is now kind of entering the picture, which is funny because, like, when I started, it was a toy, but now I hear like you're able to import picture into FL Studio, so that's probably fine. And then everything ends up in Pro Tools. That's not really your area of concern anymore. You can make music on whatever DAW you want, but usually everything ends up in Pro Tools eventually, because a broadcast mix is prepared. So this is where they take your music, they take the sound design, if there is sound design, they take the voiceover, like, whatever. There's always a voiceover on a spot, and they have to smash it all into like a coherent sounding mix where things don't clash and they're broadcast compliant. But that's not your worry. You can export your music as close to 0 dB as possible so that it's intense, it's jumping out of the speaker. But for goodness sake, if it ever clips, if there's ever glitches or mistakes, I pray for your soul in this business, because unless you're like already solid, you got your reputation here, people will forgive your mistakes. But if you're just breaking in, wrong links, wrong file exported, something went wrong, you can't afford that. So I'm just saying that because a lot of musicians are really, really magical in the studio with their stuff.
Mhm.
But sometimes, when it comes to like being reliant with
Yeah.
other things like spelling errors or links or like paying
Mhm.
attention to the brief and instructions, yeah, we see some problems. So
Yeah.
you got to sharpen up, if that's not your strong point, and it's a good thing to do,
Yeah, definitely.
stay
It
sharp.
seems like this is the real deal. These are the top highest tier clients, and as a musician, you need to meet that with the same amount of professionalism. And I'm so glad that you're here guiding us and guiding all the viewers and just paving that path of knowledge so that we can understand exactly what this business requires. And thank you guys for tuning in and for watching. I think we will go into some questions now, if that's okay with you, Tommy. And
Absolutely.
I saw a bunch of really good ones pop in. If you have been holding on to your question, or if you've just thought of a question, drop it into the chat and we will get to it. Also, if you're getting a lot out of this discussion, go ahead and click the share button and send this to a musician who you think needs to hear this. Send this to someone who's extremely talented, wants to learn about the world of making music for brands, so that they can learn all this stuff. They can get Tommy's list of production companies. They can understand how the business works and how to enter the right way, because this is a lot of great insight that is not anywhere else on the internet. It's not common knowledge. In fact, a lot of the things that Tommy's bringing forth is actually the opposite of what you'd guess. So I'm glad you're here. Let's jump into questions. I'm just going to scroll all the way back up to the top. There's a few that
Sure.
we have already covered. And let's see. There's a really good one here. I think this is a really great question that is more on the technical side, because a lot of musicians collaborate. And I'm actually wondering the same thing. If you have a production team, or if you co-write with another composer or songwriter, how do the splits work out? Where is that documented and registered? How do you go about that? I think that's a great
So
question.
normally it's not a split situation like it is in the music business.
Hmm.
Normally what happens is there's two ways you get paid, maybe three in some places. The first is that you will be commissioned to write a demo. So that's just a straight up fee. Normally it's like anywhere from $250
Hmm.
onwards if you're someone bigger, but even the top people in our business get $250 to basically sketch 30 or 60-second demo.
Got it.
Then if so, that's one way. And then if that demo makes it, then at the time when actually you receive the brief, all of the money, like the campaign details and the money is laid out. So I might write an email to one of my composers saying, "Hey, I'm working on a BMW commercial. This will air in Germany for 3 months. It's social media only. There's no TV, no radio. I have $250 for a demo. It's going to be a 60-second demo. I need it in 2 days. And if your demo makes it, I have 3,000 euros for you."
Hmm.
And that'll be it. That'll be it. So now let's talk about the publishing stuff. There's a unfortunate trend happening now, which is pretty much a reality now, especially in North America, where a lot of these projects are basically like straight up buyouts. So there is no splits, there is no publishing. Essentially, you get an email saying $250 for a demo, $7,000 if your track makes it. That's it.
Mm.
Finish. Like that's the reality you deal with, because sometimes like a lot of times the brand wants to buy out the stuff. They want to own it. So they don't
Yeah.
want to pay royalties. They don't want to deal with any of that. They just want to own all their assets. So this is why it's happening. They pass that down to the agency. So the agency basically passes it down to the production partners saying, "Hey, if the track goes, here's the buyout, here's what you're going to make, and that's about it." That's
Hmm.
North America. In Europe, you still have cases where you can make royalties. So sometimes there is no set rule, by the way. every music production company does it differently. And so everything will depend on your deal with the music production company. And they normally put their rules up front when they decide to deal with you. They'll say, so the way we do it around here is you get paid a demo fee. Maybe you get paid a lower final fee with us, but you will get 50% share. We will take 50% share. You will take 50% share. As a writer, we're going to be a publisher. And then that's the kind of royalties you're going to make. And maybe if you work on a very cheesy shampoo commercial in Germany where the girl is in the shower, like going like this, and the droplets are everywhere, and it's just a terrible commercial. Some of those are the best. I mean, they run like 7 times a day for the next 2 years, and you make like 100,000 euros in royalties. And then other times it's like, yeah, the royalties are really insignificant, so it really depends on the region. For instance, because I work with all the different with all the continents basically. So in North America, I see buyouts. Essentially, it's like, yeah, here's $5,000. That's the last you'll ever hear from us as far as money, and that's it. In Europe, there are royalties to be made, but not everywhere. So like Germany is a good place for royalties. UK might be a good place for royalties. Like Western Europe, like Netherlands, decent place for royalties. But like Eastern Europe, less, because the tracking of the broadcast stuff, of the broadcast performance royalties, is not as good as in Western Europe. In Asia, royalties also not a significant factor. So for instance, in Japan, it's really hard to get royalties out of there. So the primary way you're going to get paid is demo fee, final fee. And some people live off of demo fees. Like they honestly don't even make that much finals, but because they're always submitting very interesting stuff that should be shown to the client, but for some reason never gets picked. Hey, if you demo, think about it. If you know enough production companies and you do 2 demos a day, that's $500 a day. For doing like 30-second, 60-second songs, right? I mean, this is why some people are able to support themselves. And then there are others who are literally making like $500,000 a year doing this as a full-time composer in the world of brands. So,
wow.
So it can be pretty significant.
Yeah, thanks for breaking out the payment.
No worries.
We got another really great question here that I'll pull up. This is great for building your reel. For new artists, can we use existing video from commercials, TV, films, and add our music to it strictly for the purpose of building a reel to showcase our music with actual video work? This is a great question.
Yeah, really good question. And the first thing I will say is that we teach our students, like in our academy, to start with just a audio-only reel, because it's as long as your reel is like, you hit the nail on the head as far as the sensibility, like picking the kind of tracks that me as a music producer, I can picture in a commercial, and it's concise and it's hard hitting. And like, it just like in less than 90 seconds, I'm like blown away. A music producer like me might be likely to keep you on my radar because it's like, well, the music is fantastic. Now, the only thing remains to be seen is how this person will do stuff to picture. So I might give you a shot, an unpaid shot. I might say, hey, I'm willing to try you out, but in the beginning, I cannot commit a demo fee for you because I have to make sure that I get reliable demos from my established people. But in the interest of like seeing what happens when you're actually, in the kitchen with us, here, try, if you want to do this, great. I'm not saying you have to. It's up to you. Let me see how you would do it. So I do that sometimes. So audio only is enough. But there are instances, and we hear that from our students, that they reach out to music production companies, and there are some music producers who are like, well, I want to see some stuff on video. And then they're like, well, I don't have any video. So then what do? They ask me the same question. Can I like take existing commercials and can I put them on my website, but with my own music? I would say that's a no-no. The reason why is because literally, like, this is a property of a brand. There are actors in there that they had to pay in order to star in this commercial. And if you can imagine usage of that commercial outside of the agreed upon places might be trouble for the brand. Like, So suddenly, like if the Nike commercial starts appearing on somebody's website, and someone comes across and they're like, wait a minute, I didn't, it's like they didn't work on this. Who is this person?
Hmm.
And it's actually going to be worse for you than not having it there. So here is a pragmatic solution, because I understand the issue, and I want you to be a bit sneaky and a bit creative with this stuff, to maximize your chance of getting in. What I would do, in the interest of, like, first of all, developing the kind of sound and music that you could use for a reel, and getting familiar with the art and craft of this, is download commercials that you find on other music production company websites that are right up your DNA, like musical sensibility,
Hmm.
and sketch music to them. Most definitely sketch music to them. I would say, like, for the next 60 days, I want you to download a commercial a day and just spend 2 hours in the evening making music to it. What you're going to have at the end of the 60 days is 60 pieces, out of which you will be able to create your reel. And do not post these commercials on your website. But if ever you send your reel, tight, concise reel, which like hits me hard in the first 5 seconds and keeps my attention for the next 90. And the reason it does is because it sounds like music that could be in a commercial. And the reason it sounds like music that it could be in a commercial is because you actually scored it to a commercial in your evening practice time.
Hmm.
If they ever insist, hey, I need to see how you would do this to picture, go, look, as you can see, my sound is irresistible. Like, it's there. As far as craft, it's there. I mean, you might not want to say it's irresistible, whatever, but obviously if they're speaking to you, it's like, hey, we both recognize it's like something's going on here with the sound. I'm just getting into this business. And, I'm sure you didn't have a reel when you first started. That's a fact. Like, I didn't have a reel when I first started. None of the guys who have reels or girls who have reels today had a reel when they started. Just tell them the truth. Go, hey, I don't have I haven't been able to actually work on a commercial. This is why I'm contacting you. I believe I'm good enough. I believe my music speaks for itself. And if you really insist on seeing music on picture, I can share some stuff with you in private.
Hmm.
Because I basically scored 60 commercials in the last 60 days. And then they're gonna be like, what? Yeah, this is what I've been doing, because I really wanted to showcase my ability to write to these things. But these are not things that were commissioned. I did them in private, but I'm happy to share a private Vimeo link with you to show you my sensibility and how I put music to picture. And I think that's totally fine, as long as you don't try to pretend that you worked on it. Don't try to be sneaky or clever. People know, like, people know in this business, and so, but I think this is totally fine, as long as it's private
Hmm.
and you tell them, if your music is great and what you're showcasing is great, I don't see why you shouldn't get a first shot. Then if you deliver on your first, I don't see why you shouldn't get a second and a third and a fourth, and then eventually start getting called regularly and start getting paid demo fees. That's how we all did it.
That's awesome. And, everyone's just enjoying these answers. Jago says very valuable info so far. Great answer. Thanks, Tommy. So
Thank
this
you,
has
man.
been really great. I just want to invite you guys to ask your questions while we still have Tommy with us. I'm going to say 5-minute warning. So get your questions in now so that we can answer them live without going too long. I like to keep these things to an hour, and just to respect everyone's time and respect your time for watching. So thanks for being here. If you're watching the recording, hope you enjoyed this time that we had answering these questions live. So if you're here with us, take advantage of us being here live with you, and Tommy being here with us, and his wealth of knowledge being available. So a couple more. This is, you just answered this, but I want to expand on this question. So how long should a good audio reel be? I think you threw out a number to shoot for. And I
Yeah.
want to expand this question because your website's amazing. In case anyone hasn't already opened a new tab, definitely check out Tommy's website. It has a really cool Easter egg that just blew me away once my mouse hovered over it. I was like, what is going on here? It's crazy. So I want to expand on this question by asking, how long should a good audio reel be, and how important is a website today, in the year 2021 at the time of filming this?
Yeah.
How important is a website? Because a lot of people are operating on social media. A lot of artists, they don't keep a website because they figure, oh, between my Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, I can be contacted. But is that still true in the world of making music for brands?
So let's tackle the reel first. And I always work back from the context. Like, what do we want this audio reel to do? We want it to be listened to, and we want it to make an impression on a music producer. Who's a music producer? Someone who's very busy, working under deadlines, getting emails every day from different musicians. So they're busy. Their attention span is very short. They're usually stressed out. This is why when I see sound like link to five SoundCloud links, I'm already stressed out. I don't know which one, so forget it. So if you send me to one reel and then I actually see the time duration on the reel and it's 13 minutes, I'm not going to spend 13 minutes listening to a stranger's reel. You probably wouldn't either. And if you are, then I would say you're investing your time possibly in the wrong way. But if I see 90 seconds, I'm like, oh, okay, 90 seconds. You know what I mean? It's like, this is going to cost me 90 seconds. I'm willing to invest that 90 seconds. You never know. You never know. And in fact, I've been pleasantly surprised by a lot of reels. So I would say no more than 2 minutes. And what you want to do, this is how I got into business, is I basically scored a commercial a day for a long time until I had so many of these mini songs, 30 to 60 seconds. And then I crafted this really well blended, because I was a DJ, I took all these different tracks and just blended them into this 90-second hard-hitting reel. And I don't know how many tracks in there, but maybe 20. Some of them were 4 seconds long because they weren't actually a track. It was more like just a cool groove, but it didn't evolve. I was like, well, 4 seconds of that is enough. And then I go into the next thing, and then other tracks. Here's something very important, because length, okay, that's important. But what's more important is the DNA of your reel. How should it sound? And one thing you will notice in advertising is that the music, the songs that we create for ads are not the same as the songs you create for a record. That can take 16 bars to evolve. In the ad, we always have the same format, which is an intro, very short. And already in the intro, I know there's a question mark. It's intriguing. It's going to lead me somewhere. And then indeed, it leads me into what I call the first gear, which is we're setting off into the journey. That could be where you bring in the beat, or you basically establish a rhythm going. And then again, already within that, you should be hinting that, hey, we're just starting, we're leading you somewhere. There's a build up. It's always the same. Intro, first gear, maybe a pause, maybe a build up, climax, always a climax. 20 second. In a 30-second spot, it's always around 20 seconds. In a 60-second spot, it's always around 40 seconds or so. Always a big moment, anthemic moment. So the best reels for me are ones that show me a question and an answer. So imagine a beatless chord progression, maybe with a vocal, but I'm waiting for a resolution. It's something's coming, something's got to give, because this is too empty. And then you hit me with an incredible payoff, wide, anthemic, pulsing, throbbing, just crazy payoff. That is the best thing you can do on your reel, because that will show people that you're able to very quickly twist and turn from a question to an answer, and very quickly paint a picture in a very short amount of time, create a payoff. And that's very important. So if your reel can be made of those moments, which is build up, payoff, build up, payoff, build up, payoff, then I think that's probably the best thing you can do for your reel. But again, it's all about being familiar with the genre, with the market. So really, really study the best music production companies out there and their reels, and make sure that what you are putting on your reel is something that reflects that and is as good, if not better, than what these music production companies are showcasing that you're about to contact.
Great answer. Great answer. And really quick, before we end, where can people go to contact you, to follow up, to learn more I know you have a YouTube channel. I know you have a website. But before we wrap it up, and I just saw the chat just blow up with questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to all of them. But already there's so much value. If you're just tuning in, rewind to the beginning, because there's so much that you missed. For example, Tommy's 60-day practice challenge. So many people resonated with that. There's so many great gold nuggets on how to approach this industry, how to approach with professionalism, how it works, so that you understand and don't make the mistakes that Tommy made when he was starting out. Really, this whole stream was here to help you. And thank you so much for being here live and for answering your questions. So how can we follow up with you? Where should we go? Where can we learn more? I know that you do help artists enter and break into this career. And so I just want you to tell everyone watching, what is the next step if they're listening and they're like, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to make music and get paid for it.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you guys for showing up. I think that speaks to your commitment to your calling as a musician. I think that that's important. Being curious and constantly learning and trying to learn about new possibilities, because it's not easy being a musician, and it's never been easy. Don't think it's harder today than it was 50 years ago. It's just we're dealing with different problems. Every era has its problems and possibilities. Two ways you can check me out is, one, you can see the work that we're doing as a music production company. That's tommyz.co. And secondly, half of my life now is being spent doing this, teaching musicians. This is something that I've always done, and I really enjoy doing this. I mean, I've done like close to 1,000 campaigns now, and we continue to do them. But like where my heart is actually like talking about this craft and like discovering new talent. And then, knowing that yesterday, someone who belonged in the business is in the business today. Like yesterday, they didn't know anything about it. Today, they're in a business. So the second thing, if you do want to learn more, you can go to makingmusicforbrands.com. This is where you're going to find a free training. It's basically like an hour-long workshop. It's not live. I've produced this thing so it doesn't have like filler fluff or, it doesn't pretend to be live either. But it basically goes through three things. One, the 5 most common ways that musicians make money in our business. We've only talked about one, composing, but there's other ways to do it. Number 2, how the business works. So I in granular detail break down, again, like how is music for brands made and what it means for you as a freelance musician, how to break into this workflow. And number 3, how to put yourself together, the site, how to write emails. And it's kind of a macro introduction to our world. And I invite you to take that. That's kind of the next step. And if you're wanting to dig deeper after that, then we have a masterclass that's available for those who are serious. But that's something that you can decide once you watch the free training. The masterclass is a commitment. It's a serious commitment, both financially and time-wise. But the difference between the way we do things and other people do things is we don't just sell digital files and leave you alone with them. We're literally on the lookout for everyone that does their homework, and we have you score real commercials in our academy. And I look at each one of them, and I actually give you feedback. And selfishly, for the purpose of recruiting people into our production company, the people who really stand out for me through their diligence or through their sound, we invite into our pro group. And in our pro group, that's something like, an elite group of students where we literally share all the work that we get as a music production company with them to give them a chance to write for these commercials. So so we're building basically like this ecosystem where we're not just trying to teach, but we're actually trying to give people their first shot to those that deserve it. And so, if you're interested in this particular very niche field that nobody's really talking about, I invite you to check us out. Making Music for Brands is the website. And happy to answer also any questions that you have. If you email me, by the way, because you said there's a lot of questions and we ran out of time. If you email me, tommy@tommyz.co, with your question, and you say, hey, I was on Ryan's live stream, I'll make sure to look out for those emails. Okay. And I'll address your question.
Fantastic. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for your incredible generosity too, being here for one, but also what you do to help people start their careers, for taking the time to put the masterclass together, which I know is not a small investment in time. It probably took days and years to just to get all of that information into one place so that's actually consumable. So definitely everyone watching, check out the free workshop. I know personally that Tommy delivers. In fact, you guys already know that just by watching this stream today. And so thank you for tuning in. Just real quick before we go, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel to see more interviews just like this, to see more experts that I'm going to bring on. I really just want to bring you guys the best. I want you guys to know and learn about the music industry, all the different facets. And if this video, if this particular stream with Tommy was helpful to you, and you know of an artist that can benefit from this, I mean, this is an hour-long masterclass in itself. So go ahead and click that share button. Send this video to someone who needs to hear this information, who needs to get exposed to this other side of the music industry that's not really talked about that much. And do that artist a favor, just because I just want you guys to learn what the music industry has to offer beyond just Spotify streams, beyond just the buzzwords that are going around, because there's a lot more, as Tommy just showed to us today. So thank you, Tommy, for being here. Everyone, please follow Tommy, check him out, watch his free workshop. It's going to be definitely worth it. And I hope you enjoyed today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next stream. Take care, everyone.
Take care, guys.